Welcome to episode 1 of the assignment series. Good day, how are we today? I hope everyone is fine. Today's topic is research, ethics, and integrity issues. I will try to keep this as concise and simple to understand as possible. Let's start with what we know as ethics. What is research ethics? What is conducting research in an ethical way? There is no definition. Basically, there are a range of terms, and the spectrum itself of how you can term ethics in any sort, in any context, is quite large. To simply put, being ethical means knowing what is right, knowing what is wrong, and doing the right thing. For example, let's say you've done a study on medicine X, and before the start of the study, you hypothesized, or based on previous studies, you came to a conclusion that this medicine X should have positive influence on whatever the issue is that you're researching, but at the end of your study, you found that it does not positively influence to the extent you were hoping to. Irrespective of the hypothesis, irrespective of what you thought would be the case, putting out your results out there, publishing it truthfully is the right thing to do. That is an ethical research practice. So then, what is research integrity? Upholding a researcher's or a study's integrity calls for basically conducting the research truthfully, responsibly, and ethically. So you conduct your research in a responsible manner, conduct it truthfully, you conduct following all the ethical guidelines, you are upholding your research's integrity. Your research has a meaning at the end of it. If you are conducting any research in Australia or are associated with any Australian organization, even if you are overseas, you follow ethical guidelines set by the National Statement on Ethical Conduct in Human Research, or very commonly known as the Statement, and a Code of Conduct guideline set by the Australian Code for the Responsible Conduct of Research, simply called the Code. The Code provides key principles of responsible research conduct, and they are being honest, being rigorous, being transparent, being fair, respecting your participants, the community and animals and the environment, recognizing your participants, especially the rights of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders, basically the original custodians of Australian land, being accountable, and finally promoting responsible research practices. Along with these 8 key principles of responsible research conduct, it also provides a set of guidelines for the individual researcher and the institutions on responsibilities. This statement, on the other hand, covers all ethical guidelines. It provides ethical guidelines on the type of risk that you can classify your research on. It provides guidelines on informed consent. It provides considerations in the design, development, review, and conduct of research. It provides special considerations in terms of biospecimens in lab, genomic research, and animal to human xenotransplantation. Specific participants, for example, children and young, those who are under 18 years old, pregnant women, human fetus, people who are dependent. Lastly, it also provides guidelines on governance and ethics review. Both the code and the statement are very handy books. They are readily available and provide very succinct and detailed guidelines on the ethical practices that you should follow, your responsibilities as an individual researcher, responsibilities for the institution that you're a part of, for the institution as well, and key principles for responsible research conduct. My first assignment of the honors year was identifying key research ethics and integrity issues in my research area, in my field, which is broadly saying sports science. It was a 1,200-word report that I had to write, identifying those issues, what would be the possible implications if those issues did come up, provide recommendations on best research practices so that those issues are avoided in the first place, and how do you address those issues should they arise. So, as required, I did quite a bit of digging into databases of journal articles, use Google Scholar, use PubMed, ideally looking into systematic reviews, which would talk about issues, integrity issues, ethical issues in sports science field, ideally sport biomechanics, but such that went through a lot of single journal articles that talked about single issues, not really, and very specific topics. Finally, I sourced this one systematic review, which went on to become my primary journal article to refer to for my assignment. Gulmami et al. In 2024 published a systematic review which titled The Ethical Compass: Establishing Ethical Guidelines for Research Practices in Sport Medicine and Exercise Science. Quite a broad field. Lovely.
That is simply lovely.
It had reviewed a lot of sports science papers, sport biomechanics papers as well. And that systematic review narrowed down at the end 15 key issues. All 15 of them were broad issues. So they breached some guidelines, ethical guidelines stated in the statement, a few guidelines stated in the code regarding principles, regarding the responsibilities. In the end, I came down to 2 of those 15 issues, mainly because I was short on word count, to talk about the issue, the possible implications if the issues arose, best practices to avoid the issues in the first place, and what to do if those issues arose. The first issue that I have put down in my assignment, and I think it is very fitting in today's world, is unrestricted use of artificial intelligence. Now, AI or artificial intelligence, why is it an issue? It specifically mentioned unrestricted use of artificial intelligence. AI, it relies on massive database that is present in the internet, and it does not need to be scholarly articles, journal articles. It does not have to be studies or research that has evidence behind what is being said. It could be accessing someone's blog that does not have evidence, or it's someone's perception or belief that is not proven. Now, if you want AI to provide you with some information, it not always is going to give you the correct information in the first place. It could. The other issue is it could jumble up citations in the sense that it could provide you with the wrong reference. So it generates potentially non-original content, incorrect citations, and that could lead to plagiarism, which is basically stealing others' content because now you're citing the wrong person for the content you're using. How could unrestricted use be an issue? So AI as a tool itself is very useful. The best use of AI is, I'd say, restricted to generating keywords, generating ideas, rephrasing sentences, enhancing fluency, and simplifying content that you've already jotted down. It helps researchers whose first language is not English or who have poor vocabulary. And that is okay as long as you use artificial intelligence chatbots to refine the way you present something, not to present something that you haven't found or found incorrectly from different source, or even information that does not make sense because it's not proven. According to the code, if you use unrestricted AI, you're potentially breaching the key principles like honesty, rigor, transparency, and accountability. And if you look at the statement's ethical guidelines, basically going against the guidelines on how to conduct a research scope, or how to write the aims, the themes, how to construct your consent forms so that your participants provide informed consent, how you collect and use and manage data, and how you communicate eventually the research findings. What happens if those breaches were noted by the governing bodies? That is, you're potentially causing plagiarism, that is fabrication of information and results, and failure to declare conflict of interest because you have used another service to construct your research, whatever that could be to an extent, but it's gone beyond the extent that it can be called solely your research. That is a research misconduct. If a research misconduct is proven, the employing institution, so your university or whatever organization that you're directly a part of, could kick you out.
You're fired. Get out of here.
So we don't know, but they can issue disciplinary actions according to their instruments of employment. That brings disrepute to you as an individual researcher, your team, your institution, and it threatens your career as a researcher. It affects the research's integrity. So, because you have been unethical, your research now does not hold a meaning. It negatively impacts the study's credibility, future funding for related research, and public trust. You're breaking the public's trust. Whoever is involved or will be involved in that research, whoever is meant to use your research for anything, you're breaking their trust because now nothing makes sense anymore. What do you do to avoid it in the first place? First of all, as I mentioned, restrict the use of artificial intelligence to paraphrase, to rephrase your sentences, suggest you ideas, or generate keywords. That's pretty much it. As long as it assists you in clarifying content or make your own academic writing look prettier, it's all right. Relying on AI to provide you sources, to provide you articles, to provide you information otherwise, that is too far. Using AI to write your thesis more than what you would do to write your thesis, that is too far. Also, declare the fact that you have used AI to whatever extent, because many journals may have some cap, some limit to how much AI you can use, or may not even be okay if you use AI. So, whatever you do, no matter how small or how big AI has influenced your study, make sure you declare it. Make sure it is out in the public. People know that you have used AI services in your research, wherever it would be. In my specific case, where the literature to refer to is very limited, and I am in a dilemma where I don't know how I'm going to construct my introduction, or in general, just literature review, designing the study, in that case, consult your supers, consult your supervisor, consult other people. Dig deep into Google Scholar or PubMed, do a bit more work rather than relying on AI. AI should not even be a resort to doing literature review and searching literature. Now, should a misconduct occur? I'm gonna read this paragraph here because I don't have it on top of my head. At Deakin University, the allegations involving Deakin staff and student must be reported to the designated officer of Research Ethics and Integrity Department in written. You have a designated officer at the Research Ethics and Integrity Department at Deakin for your study. Everyone will have their own officer to reach out to basically the point of contact if anything goes wrong. The institution must have a written policy on receiving allegations, addressing them appropriately, treating parties on both sides of the allegation fairly, have a designated officer, and one or more persons as RIA or Research Integrity Advisors. I honestly don't know who these people are or what they do, but hopefully I don't go that path. So for me, coming up in my honors year, I have to make sure I don't use artificial intelligence beyond limits. Issue number 2, and this is actually not common in today, but fairly stupid issue to actually have, and that is lack of informed consent. When you conduct human research, you need participants to trial on whatever your intervention is, whatever you're trying to solve. What a break.
One little boost to the surface later.
It is the right of the participants to know what the research is, why it's being conducted, what is going to come out of the research for the public, for the world, for the greater good, and what is in for them as participants. Participants of any research are volunteers. They don't get paid. Researchers can refund them in any way they wish to. It's not mandatory, gift cards or vouchers of some sort. So they have to be protected by us, the researchers, the team, the institutions, and basically the code and the statement. They are their protectors. We cannot subject them to something that they don't know. We cannot blind them into doing something they don't want to. We cannot coerce them into doing something that they don't want to. That is why, before the beginning of any research, the researchers must form a proper consent form. A plain language statement is what we call PLS. and set it out to participants, stating exactly what is there, everything in detail and in as simple language as possible so that it's understood by everyone. And they need to have the right to pull out of the research at any point. They can either reject the consent form and say, no, we don't want to participate. Let's say they do, they come to participation, and in the middle they say no, they still have the right to walk out without a reason. Why is informed consent a crucial part of sports science, especially sport biomechanics? And talking about my own project is because in sport biomechanics, more often than not, we need the participants to strip down and be in minimum clothing because we go on to stick retroreflective markers on their joints and segments, which are picked up by infrared cameras that develop the biomechanical model out of them. And that is crucial. You cannot have those retroreflective markers stick on you on clothing because clothing keeps moving around. They have to be stuck on bare skin. My participants are going to be cricket spin bowlers. They will be in minimal clothing. They will have those markers fitted on their body and will be tasked to bowl a certain spin bowling protocol, which means not only are they stripping down and being uncomfortable with that potentially, but also bowling in an uncomfortable environment. They have these markers fitted on them, which isn't a comfortable thing in itself. You get heavy and sweaty, plus you are almost naked. For that, getting informed consent from participants is very, very, very necessary. Everything that is written in my PLS or in any sport biomechanics studies, PLS and consent forms, they have to be very clear and specific about what the participants are going to go through. If that does not happen, if my PLS is unclear, if my consent forms are unclear or they do not disclose everything that is to be done in the research, if the informed consent is poorly documented or is unobtained at all, you don't set out those consent forms at all and just have participants come to you, that is a breach of the key principles of the code, specifically honesty, rigor, transparency, respect, accountability, and promotion. You're not promoting ethical practices. Regarding the statement, that is a breach of. Oh my God! That is a breach of a lot of consent guidelines. There are about 26 individual guidelines on general requirements of consent, and you are potentially breaching 15 of them. Possible implications. What happens if you do not obtain informed consent? Lack of informed consent is a breach of the code. Now, breach of the code is different from research conduct. A breach of the code could be innocent as well. It could have happened for someone who's conducting research for the first time, or some points were missed out and they were not declared. When a breach of the code happens, it is advised that that matter is sorted out from within the department itself. So supervisors get together, your head of department get together, and you are corrected from within. You're reprimanded for that to a lesser extent than what it would be if it was a research misconduct. Now, if lack of informed consent was proven to be deliberate and had an adverse effect on the subject, so the subjects were affected in a bad way, whether it's physical, mental, whatever that is, and it was proven that it was deliberate, that escalates to a research misconduct. It's no more a breach of the code. It's not something that should be sorted out from within the department, within the institution. It goes to the central level. That is serious. How to avoid this issue? I think it's very simple. Follow the statements, guidelines on getting informed consent. They are very clear, they are very succinct. They cover all bases. Your PLS, which is plain language statement to the potential participants before you start your study, they have to be very clear. Every detail has to be there. Nothing must be kept in the dark. You could issue a good PLS, you could issue a good consent form, but have your participants forcefully sign them and come to you. So informed consent must be free of coercion as well. Finally, they must be entitled to withdraw of your study at any point. Now, if that is a breach of the code, which was the level below research misconduct. Let's say lack of informed consent was found to be a rookie mistake, or some parts were unintentionally left out. Primary contact should be the supervisor and the head of department in that case, and matters must be solved internally. Within that, if there is a conflict of interest with the supervisor or the department head, then the primary contact becomes the research integrity advisor, or the RIA mentioned in the first issue. Should it escalate to a research misconduct, so it is proven that it was deliberate and or participants were harmed, then same guidelines as before must be followed. So a written report to the designated officer of the Research Ethics and Integrity Department must be issued. And then finally, after all that rant, what is the conclusion? Simply put, follow the code, follow the statement, follow all the guidelines given in both of them, be responsible, be ethical in your approach, conduct research truthfully as best as possible, stay away from any issues, and even if they happen unintentionally, make sure you follow the proceedings that are mentioned in both the statement and the code as they are. Certainly, things that I have to keep in mind are making sure I use artificial intelligence to a certain extent only, and have my consent forms and PLS well written. Because the 2 issues out of the 15 that were in the systematic review that I chose was because I felt like they were very relatable to my case. I have very limited resources to refer to in the first place, and biomechanics study always calls, more often than not, calls for the participants to perform trials in uncomfortable environment. I hope you all took something meaningful out of this episode. I know it was a rant. It would have been quite boring as well, assignments usually are, but researchers must follow very strict rules and regulations. And to start off my honors year with this topic, I think that is a genius move from the academic curriculum that is set before you start. These are your terms and conditions. Follow them, don't screw it up. To be honest, was once I found that systematic review, it was easy for me to put it in a report, select a few, make sure I'm within the word count, construct my assignment. Until then, I was searching all databases, and I was stuck in a rut and I couldn't find my way out. It was a bit hilarious. I was going through all the discussion threads on the unit side and trying to find something within other students' questions that could help me. But all other honors students, they have different topics, so no one is on the same page. Even with these assignments from me to another honor student, they're going to be so different because the topics itself, they're very varied. Good thing there are a lot of topics. This is what I had planned for the assignment series. I will talk about the assignments that are given to me, the topic in general, and what I eventually went on to do in those assignments. More of educational style videos. Coming up next will be let me check. Coming up next in this series will be critical evaluation of literature. So it is a step before constructing your literature review. Basically, you source the literature in your field you feel like you will refer to, and you critically appraise it in a sense that you check whether they are actually worth referring to. Alright, the end of the rant. Let's end this. Like, share, subscribe, comment down below anything that you want to, and until my next video, I will see you all later.